Hello and welcome to this exploring session as we complete our work on Edward the First by George Peele. We are looking at the final, not quite third of the play. It's a slightly shorter session than we've, in terms of the amount of text we've got to do today, than we have on previous sessions. If you want to know the story so far, go back and watch previous episodes. It's all Edward trying to secure his power in Wales and Scotland, and it's quite fiddly, Robin Hood stuff. Elinor chopping off parts of anatomy. It's quite fiddly and complicated, and really you don't want me to try and see it now. You really don't. So go back, watch other videos, or just go on Wikipedia and look for a précis there. It'll probably be wrong, but you know, what can you do? So we have a wonderful team with us to finish this as we try and figure out what we might do with this production, what we might do with this text in other media in the future. So in no particular order, reading today, Katherina, John, David, and Spenser is...
Hiya, Dan calling from Montpellier, France.
And reading Versses and second messenger today is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu, and I'm also Lord Romford.
And reading the part of Edward Longshanks and Lady Elinor is...
Hi, I'm Alexandra, and I was around yesterday and got completely confused. I wasn't around for the beginning, so I still have no idea what's going on.
Perfectly legitimate response. This is what happens when you turn up after the first interval. Reading Edmund, Duke of Lancaster, and Joan is...
I'm Lois, and I do early modern literature, and I live in London. Yeah.
And reading Mortimer and the Potter's Wife today is...
Hi, I'm Tamara. I am still in Germany. I am usually in London. I do hope to get back at some point.
And reading Balliol, First Messenger, and Sussex today is...
Alan Scott, still marooned in Suffolk.
Reading Gloucester and the Friar is...
Hello, my name is Sascha Cooper, and I'm a professional performer, actress, and loads more besides, based in Brighton in the UK.
And reading the Bishop and Lluellen, I think, today is...
Hi, I'm Lynn. I am in the northwest of the United States.
And reading Queen Elinor, Queen Elinor, and Harper today is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I'm a historian and I'm in London.
And reading Lord, Mayoress, and Novice is...
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake. I'm an actor, writer, and director living in Germany.
And assuming that I haven't missed anyone out, that leaves me. I'm Robert Crighton. I am your host, and I will be attempting to guide us through this this text as we go. I say guide, you know, I have no idea what's going on, so it's fine. It's going to be discovering all together what's going on. So we're joining the text at what could be classed as scene 13. After the christening and marriage done, the heralds having attended, they pass over. The bride is led by two noblemen, Edmund of Lancaster and the Earl of Sussex and the Bishop.
Welcome, Joan, Countess of Gloucester, to Gilbert declare forever.
God give them joy, cousin Gloucester. Let us now go visit the King and Queen, present their majesties with their young son, Edward, Prince of Wales.
Then all pass in their order to the King's pavilion. The King sits in his tent with his pages about him.
We represent your highness most humbly with your young son, Edward of Carnarvon, Prince of Wales.
God save
Edward of Carnarvon,
Prince of Wales.
Longshanks kisses them both.
Edward, Prince of Wales, God bless thee with long life and honour. Welcome, Joan, Countess of Gloucester, God bless thee and thine forever. Lords, let us visit my queen and wife, whom we will at once present with a son and daughter, honoured to her desire.
They all march to the chamber. Bishop speaks to her in her bed.
We humbly present your majesty with your young son, Edward of Carnarvon, Prince of Wales.
God save Edward of Carnarvon,
Prince of
Prince of
Wales.
Wales.
Queen Elinor, she kisses him.
Gramercy Bishop, hold, take that to buy thee a rochet. Welcome, Welshman. Here, nurse, open him and have him to the fire, for God's sake. They have towels him, and wash him thoroughly, and that be good. And welcome, Joan, Countess of Gloucester. God bless thee with long life, honour, and heart's ease. I am now as good as my word, Gloucester. She is thine. Make much of her, gentle earl.
Now, my sweet Nell, what more commandeth my queen that nothing may want to perfect her contentment?
Nothing, sweet Ned, but pray my king to feast the lords and ladies royally, and thanks 1,000 times, good men and women, for you all, for this duty and honour done to your prince.
Master bridegroom, by old custom, this is your waiting day. Sir David, you may command all ample welcome in our court for your countrymen. Brother Edmund, revel it now, or never forget, or never, revel it now or never, for honour of your England's son. Gloucester now, like a brave bridegroom, marshal this meanie, and set these lords and ladies to dancing. So shall you fulfil the old English proverb, "'Tis merry in hall when beards wag all."
Yes. After the show, the king and queen, with all the lords and ladies in place, Longshanks speaketh.
What tidings bring Verses to our court?
Oh, indeed, enter in Verses with a halter about his neck. See previous episode.
Tidings to make thee tremble, English king.
Me tremble, boy. Must not be news from Scotland can once make English Edward stand aghast.
Balliol hath chosen at this time to stir, to rouse him lion-like, and cast the yoke that Scots ingloriously have borne from thee, and all the predecessors of thy line, and make his blood to re-obtain his rights, and for his homage sends thee all this despite.
Why, how now, peacock? Freitas thou to a king?
I do my message truly from my king. This sword and target tried in louder terms. I bring defiance from King John Balliol to English Edward and his barons all.
Marry, so methinks thou defiest me with a witness.
My king in Balliol makes his court. His camp he spreads upon the sandy plain, and dares thee to the battle in his right.
But court and camp in Englishman's despite.
Longshanks. Hold messenger.
Hold, messenger, commend me to thy king. Wear thou my chain, and carry this to him. Greet all his rout of rebels, more or less. Tell them such shameful end will hit them all, and wend with this as resolutely back as thou to England brought'st thy Scottish braves. Tell then disdainful Balliol from us, will arouse him from his hold, and make him soon dislodge his camp, and take his walled town. Say what I bid thee, Verses, to his teeth, and earn this favour and a better thing.
Yes, King of England, whom my heart loves, think as I promised him to brave thee here. So shall I bid John Balliol base from thee.
So shalt thou earn my chain and favour, Verses, and carry him this token that thou send'st. Why, now is England's harvest ripe. Barons, now may you reap the rich renown that under warlike colours springs in field and grows where ensigns wave upon the plains. False Balliol, Barrack has no hold of proof to shroud thee from the strength of Edward's arm. No Scot Thy treason's fear shall make the breach for England's pure renown to enter one.
And everybody says, but that would be a disaster on Zoom. Amain, amain upon these treacherous Scots. Amain say all upon these treacherous Scots.
While we, with Edmund, Gloucester, and the rest, with speedy journeys, gather up our forces and beat these braving Scots from England's bounds, Mortimer, thou shalt take the route in task, that revel here and spoil fair Cambria. My queen, when she is strong and well afoot, shall post to London and repose her there. Then God shall send us happily all to meet and joy the honours of our victories. Take advantage of our foes and see the time. Keep still our hold, our fight yet on the plain. Balliol, I come, proud Balliol, and ingrate, persuaded to chase thy men from England's gate.
And everyone exits. I think we should point out a disclaimer here that the opinions of the Scots vary. Speaking as someone who is half Scottish, this interpretation of history is somewhat distasteful. Yes, we're heading for Berwick, and all sorts of things are going to be happening. There's lots of really interesting things in this. I'm fascinated by. They've hired the trumpeter, so they're going to get their money's worth, by God. The fact we've gone from the earlier scene where, you know, Elinor has basically had the child taken away from her so that it can do the official ceremony as Edward wants, and now it's sort of this coming back and going, is everything okay? I'll do anything you want now that we've done the politicking thing. All sorts of interesting stuff. Lots of fun activities, some dancing looks to be happening. And I think the stage direction for Versses entering with the halter about his neck must come during the dancing and the festivities and breaks that scene up. So everyone looks at him going, what the hell's happened to him? And so that's a nice dramatic moment in the middle of the scene that changes everything. And doesn't Edward perk up when it looks like war's going to happen? It's always saying he enjoys.
Yes.
Sorry, I've been talking a lot. Helen.
The halter thing reminded me slightly of the tennis balls, and I think it was the famous victories.
Mm. Yeah. Well,
and Longshanks' reaction is very similar.
Mm. So yeah, the halter. I mean, what do they mean precisely by halter? Is, I mean, you know, I initially thought of it as just a noose, but is it more literally a halter kind of thing that you might have on an animal?
No, I think it's a noose.
Mm. Mm. It's starting to feel very Hieronymo-y.
Yes. Or burghers of Calais.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Other thoughts about the scene? You know, there's lots going on. Alan.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting reaction from Elinor with the kid having been brought back, her immediate reaction to the nurse is, I will take this baby away and wash it.
Yeah, I really love her dialogue there, actually, isn't it? Just, what the hell are you doing with my child? That's not how you look after him. I do like that. I think that Queen Elinor has a lot of detail to her character that other people don't. Mm. You know, regardless of what we think of her, you know, there is a real world to her that exists. Lois, I think I saw a hand.
Yeah, I was just interested in the fact that Versses, as a kind of ambassador, manages to insult everybody, even though he's basically on the side of Edward, and you know, didn't like this message to begin with. There's this. It's again this play acting thing that we've already had with the Robin Hood play acting. Now he's in this funny position of having to, you know, insult somebody on behalf of somebody else. Now he's going to have to go back and insult the King of Scotland.
Yes, and you know, there is that thing. He's still wearing the noose. He doesn't have to at this point, surely. He could have taken it off. You know, it's one of those things. I love the way that Edward takes off presumably takes off it and swaps it with a chain. So it takes this unpleasant image and swaps it with something that's presumably quite rich, you know, as almost as a reward for his service.
Mm-hmm.
Lynn.
Yes, but there's got to be some kind of irony there. That chain of office is a halter in a way.
Mm.
That being chained to a monarch, that's presumably potentially suicide.
Yes, because he is just literally said, right, now back you go.
Yeah.
Good luck. Sarah.
I'm just wondering, is there some way that the halter could have been like tied, like so that he couldn't take it off? I mean, is there some kind of way it could have been? I mean, it could have come down. He could have. Oh, he couldn't have had his hands bound if he's come down here on a horse. But I don't know. I'm just wondering if there's some way that it could be like affixed to him, because it does seem odd that he hasn't taken it off.
Mm.
It's
Well,
an
dramatic
integral
effect.
part of the message.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really see the symbolism of it, though. I get your point about how it plays the same function as the tennis balls, but I don't quite see what message is behind the symbol.
I think the message from both Balliol and with the halter and Edward with the chain is, come on if you think you're hard enough.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's what's basically happening. It's a mark of like sort of disdain and challenge and all the rest of it. But I don't really understand why they've used a halter.
Well,
unless it is a horse's halter.
Well,
I mean,
he did actually. Balliol did explain. You know, it's about shaking off England's tyranny, a strangling halter. So I think that's the idea. Is that it's that's what it's representing.
But then you think he'd take it off and throw it at Edward's feet.
Yeah.
Maybe he does. Maybe he does.
Maybe.
But yeah, effect over possible logic. And also there is the possibility that, because you're taking this from some other source, again, it's the logic of a story told is not always the same as dramatic logic. And so maybe they've just put it there. I don't know if it is from a source or whether it's been added by this playwright. I'd like to know what the merrying in the hall is when beards waggle. I'm quite curious. Okay, any additional thoughts before we move on? No, I see no hands waving. So we'll move to what we're calling scene 14, and we're going up to the Scots, and we're going to have the returning message here. So enter Balliol with his train.
Princes of Scotland and my loving friends, whose necks are overwearied with the yoke and servile bondage of these Englishmen, lift up your horns, and with your brazen hooves spur at the honour of your enemies. 'Tis not ambitious thoughts of private rule hath forced your king to take on him these arms. 'Tis country's cause, as 'tis the country's good, us and our brave posterity. To arms! To arms! Versses has by this hath told the king our minds, and he hath braved proud England to the proof. We will remunerate his resolution with gold, with glory, and with kingly gifts.
By sweet St. Jerome, Versses will not spare to tell his message to the English king, and bear the jolly Longshanks to his face, were he the greatest monarch in the world. And here he comes. His halter makes him haste.
Enter Versses.
Long live my lord, the rightful king of Scots.
Welcome, Versses. What news from England? Like to the measure of Scotland's king?
Versses, my lord, in terms like to himself, like to the messenger of Scottish king, defied the peers of England and their lords, that all his barons trembled at my threats, and Longshanks himself, as daunted and amazed, gazed on my face, not witting what to say. To rouse me up, he shaked his threatening hair. Versses, quoth he, take thou the King Edward's chain, upon condition thou a message do, to Balliol false, perjured Balliol. For in these terms he bade me greet your grace, and gave this halter to your excellencies. I took the chain and gave your grace the rope.
You took the chain and give my grace the rope. Lay hold on him, my miscreant recreant. Darest thou bring a halter to thy king? I will quit thy pain, and in that chain a upon a silver gallows shalt thou hang, honoured with the golden rope of England and the silver gibbet of Scotland. Thou must hang in the air for fowls to feed upon and men to wonder at. Away with him! Away!
And after the and yes, there's a sort of strange thing here that this might be the end of the scene, so I'm just going to pause it there. Okay, I think we've misunderstood what Versses was doing and his view of his role. You know, not that he was forced to go there; he was a willing messenger with the message, and that, or he's sort of playing. I think it's a bit more complicated than we were just saying it was. Thoughts in the room? Am I horribly wrong there?
I think it's about basically the old one about the don't be a bearer of bad news, because the messenger's the one who's going to get clobbered.
Because looking at what what Versses said when he went to England, you know, he seems quite enthusiastically giving his message. So it seems that he is on the Scots side. The fact that he returns with the golden chain, however, then that means he's doomed, and that looks wrong, and that he's got his messaging wrong. I don't know. Am I right? Am I right? Am I wrong, Alexandra?
I don't know if this is the right reading of it, but it would be an interesting interpretation to portray on stage, whereby he is very enthusiastically on the side of whoever he's talking to when he's talking to them, because that's the job, in order not to get, you know, not to be the messenger that gets shot. So either that he's playing to the expectations of each side, or that he's sort of sincerely, or that he's working really hard to do that, and at this point he fails at that. I think that would be interesting as a staging.
He should have buried the chain on the road somewhere before turning up if he was doing that. Lynn first.
So something that would be consistent with that is Versses says that the Lord is trembled and Longshanks himself was daunted. That's not the impression I got in that actual scene. So he's lying to Balliol about how intimidated the English were. So that would be that kind of sucking up thing that Alexandra was talking about.
Yes, he roused up. He shakes his threatening hair. I mean, whoa. I thought we just had them shaved off, but you know.
No, he didn't get shaved.
I know.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Lois.
Yeah, I wondered about that line, here he comes, his halter makes him haste. Is this like, I mean, with the burghers of Calais, when they arrive with halters around their necks, that means that they're prepared to be executed. Does he have to go off with this halter indicating that he's under sentence of death if he doesn't get back again? I mean, it could be that because Balliol thinks he's more loyal to Edward, he sort of sends this indicating, you know, if he doesn't come back to me, then you execute him. I don't know. I can't figure this out. There seems to be a symbolism that we're not getting.
I mean, they're talking about necks over-wearied with the yoke again in the beginning of the scene. So it's an image that is lingering in the text in different ways. Sarah?
I don't have a problem with Versses because he does what he's told, basically, and I do think there is a definite element of him, like, yeah, telling each side what they want to hear. What I don't understand is Balliol's reaction, because I mean he's you know, Versses is basically doing what he's told. He's taken the halter to Edward, he's brought back the chain from Edward, he's relaying the message. He does it in as flattering terms as he can, you know, by saying that Longshanks was daunted and amazed. And then, I mean, what did Balliol expect? Did he expect Edward to go, oh no, I'm really scared of the Scots? Oh yeah, just go back and tell them they can have anything they want. I mean, what was he expecting?
I think his cardinal sin is he keeps the chain himself and hands the noose back to the Scottish king.
But why would he do that?
Because he's an idiot.
No, that is no way of solving this problem. But it's probably as far as we'll get today.
Yes, I was going to say, any different thoughts as opposed to reiterations? Anybody got another theory? Alan?
I'm just reminded of the 19th century definition of an ambassador as someone sent abroad to lie for his country. Devil's Dictionary.
Yeah.
Back to the 17th century.
Mm. Okay. We've got a tiny little scenette thing here, which doesn't quite seem to connect with what happens before or quite afterwards. It's very short. After the sight of John Balliol is done, so after he's gone, enter Mortimer pursuing of the rebels. So some pursuing of rebels is occurring, ladies and gentlemen. Go Mortimer.
Strike up the drum, follow, pursue, and chase. Follow, pursue, spare not the proudest he that havocs England's sacred royalty.
And exit Mortimer. Then make the proclamation upon the wall, sound trumpets. And that's sort of that random unit of action.
That's the Welsh Wars.
Yeah,
condensed.
that's the whole Welsh Wars.
In one go.
Yeah, so that's quite random. I don't know if that lives there. I don't know what to make of that.
Weird.
I'm not going to hold it. We'll come back to this probably in later discussion. I don't think there's more to say about that. That was exciting. I think you're all thrilled. Let's move on to the next scene. Enter the Queen alone.
Now fits the time to purge our melancholy and be revenged upon this London dame. Katherina?
Enter Katherina.
At hand, madam.
Bring forth our London Mayoress here.
I will, madam.
Now, Nell, bethink thee of some tortures for the dame, and purge thy choler to the uttermost.
Enter the Mayoress and Katherina.
Now, Mistress Mayoress, you have attendance urged, and therefore, to requite your courtesy, our mind is to bestow an office on you straight.
Myself, my life, and service, mighty Queen, are humbly at your Majesty's command.
Then, Mistress Mayoress, say, will you be our nurse or laundress?
Then may it please your Majesty to entertain your handmaid for your nurse. She will attend the cradle carefully.
Oh, no, nurse. The babe needs no great rocking. It can lull itself. Katherina, bind her in the chair, and let's see how she'll become a nurse. So now, Katherina, draw forth her breast, and let the serpent suck his fill. Why, so now she is a nurse. Suck on, sweet babe.
Ah, Queen! Sweet Queen, seek not my blood to spill, for I shall die before this adder have his fill.
Die or die not. My mind is fully pleased. Come, Katherina, to London now will we, and leave our Mayoress with her nursery.
Farewell, sweet Mayoress. Look unto the babe.
And exit the Queen and Katherina.
Farewell, proud Queen, the author of my death, the scourge of England and to English dames. Oh, husband, sweet John Bamber, Mayor of London, didst thou know how Mary is perplexed? Soon wouldst thou come to Wales and rid me of this pain. But oh, I die. My wish is all in vain.
And she dies. I don't know how they clear the stage, but presumably they manage it somehow. Okay. As we all know, adders will suck your blood until you die of exsanguination. That seems to be what's indicated here, rather than poison or anything like that. You know, that's how this works. It's who saw that coming? Who hadn't read the thing that told us what was happening next the other day. This is mentioned in the ballad we looked at in a separate session. So yeah.
I was somewhat surprised that they're still in Wales.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that surprised you.
Yes. Sorry.
It's a well-known story. It's a well-known story, this.
I knew the story.
Oh.
But I had... No, come to think of it, even in the story, she does go to Wales.
So, you know, because because that's where she is.
Yes. But she is petitioning for a job in the household.
Mm.
I mean, most household jobs, you know, that had names that imply very menial activity, but which you would pay someone else to do, but which just in fact gave you access to the sovereign. You know, the sergeant porter didn't actually carry anything or guard any doors.
And the Queen's taking this very literally. Yeah.
Far more than the Mayoress expected.
Well, in the ballad, she is, you know, she actually has a lengthy service where she's locked in, you know, in a household, forced to do all the menial work, all the laundry, doing, you know, and doing all this before the death bit. So this is quite a condensed interpretation of that particular story.
I mean, I assume there's no historical basis for this. That Elinor of Castile didn't go around doing this kind of thing.
No. Spanish, you know, that's basically the logic here. That's basically it. Just good old-fashioned jingoism. Alan.
It has the feel to me that this is a random porn scene put in just before the commercial break to get people to come back.
If it was a porn scene, it would have to involve kneading of cheese and things. Can't remember what play that one was. Okay. Any additional thoughts with that short scene? You know, the Mayoress, who hasn't exactly been central, but you know, we've you know, had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Ish.
Yes, the middle, in fact, I strongly believe isn't her. But I can come back to that later.
Yeah.
I just found it really disturbing. And I mean, it's kind of all a part of Eleanor's character that we've seen before, you know, with her wanting to, you know, cut off breasts and all the rest of it. But she has kind of taken it to another level now, hasn't she?
It's murder.
It's still a breast fixation as well.
There's a breast fixation, and also it's just incredibly cruel. It's not the fact that she murders her; it's the fact that she says to her, "Oh, you know, do you want to be my nursemaid or my laundress?" And she's thinking, promotion, because of what, you know, Helen was saying. And then it's just so horribly cruel. It is a part of Eleanor's character. We've seen it before, but it seems to have ramped up, and I'm wondering where this is going to end. Well, I mean, I kind of know where it's going to end because of the history.
You say
but,
that.
But I don't know what's going to happen in between.
And also, you know, her accomplice is Katherina, also another foreign person, you see. So all the English people are good, right, and true, but you can't trust anybody else because they're all other people. Alexandra.
I was connecting that to the thing that the process, the mental kind of logic that Elinor is going through with the logic of the halter and the chain and those kind of symbolic things becoming real actions. So yeah, it was kind of in the same world for me. That was in a way okay only in that way. But I had a note or an idea on the Mortimer entrance just before as potentially a meanwhile in Wales sort of appearance, or possibly what we're missing here is a great big battle scene or fight scene that, again, you know, the action explains something important that the dialogue does not. Why the stage directions wouldn't have it, I don't know.
It's really the placement, because we got politics in Scotland, you know, everything else is signposted quite well. And, you know, I have to be reminded that that's supposed to be happening in Wales, because this play is fragmented over quite long geographical distances. And yeah, so it's interesting. It's interesting. Okay, let's. We've got another short scene coming up. Scene 17, as I've got it here. Enter Lluellen running out before, and David with a halter, ready to hang himself.
The angry heavens frowned on Britain's face to eclipse the glory of fair Cambria. With sore aspect of dreadful planet's lower, Lluellen basely, turn thy back and fly. No Welshman fight it out to the last and die, for if my men safely have got to bride, careless of chance, I'll reck no sour reed. And so now no sour event. England's broad womb hath not that armed band that can expel Lluellen from this land.
Enter David.
Fly, Lord of Cambria, fly, Prince of Wales. Sweet brother, fly, though field is won and lost. Thou art beset with England's furious troops, and cursed Mortimer like a lion leads. Our men have got the bridge, but all in vain. The Englishmen are come upon our backs. Either flee or die, for England hath the day. For me, I have my rescue in my hand. England, on me no torment shall inflict. Farewell, Lluellen, while we'll meet in heaven.
And exit David and enter soldiers. Who's my... Have I got a soldier? Have I given out a soldier? I haven't given out a soldier, have I? Dear. Sascha, be a soldier.
Okay.
Oh, can you
Follow-
be? No, you can't. You're about to be a friar.
Read it yourself.
I'll read it myself. Okay. Follow, pursue, lie there, whate'er thou be. And Lluellen is slain with a pike staff. Yet soft my hearts, let us his countenance see. This is the prince, I know him by his face. Oh, gracious fortune that me happy made to spoil the weed that chokes fair Cambria. Hail him from hence, and in this bosky wood bury his corpse. But for his head I vowed, I will present our governor with the same. I'm just going to pause there briefly as just to say, if I was going to put the Mortimer scene anywhere, somewhere in here.
Yeah.
It could be in the middle, before the entrance of the soldiers. It could be at the top. But it fits quite well. Just a thought.
Yeah.
So, Llewellyn's gone. Poor soul. Alan.
I was just thinking, actually, the Mortimer scene where it sits does actually make a bit of sense if it's a front of tabs number, while they clear the Scottish set to move to the Queen.
Well, the Scottish scene is so short itself in itself is almost fulfills that function for other things. I don't think there is a need of a setting for that. It just, in terms of knowing where we are in the story, it makes more sense that it lives with other Welsh battle stuff. It may not. We can disagree. Anybody feels really that it should live elsewhere? Lois.
No, I think it's right. I mean, presumably Mortimer and his soldiers running across the stage, and then the Welsh running the opposite direction across the stage. No, it just strikes me that Llewellyn's death is awfully anticlimactic for what I thought was a major character. That's not surprising given some of the other things that happen.
Yes, Helen.
Before you start the next scene, you've got to remind people who Richard is.
Oh, yeah.
If you would like to explain who Richard is, that would be lovely.
Richard is the friar's staff. That is wooden rather than personal assistant.
Because his personal assistant's called Jack.
Right.
Okay, if we're talking about front of tabs numbers, we're pretty much coming to that now, because this is a very short scenette, which may or may not connect. So, enter the friar with a halter about his neck. It's the fashion statement of the year.
Come, my gentle Richard, my true master's servant, that in some storms have stood my master. Hang thee, I pray thee, least I hang for thee, and down on thy merry bones like a foolish fellow, that have gone far astray, and ask forgiveness of God and King Edward for playing the rake hell and the rebel here in Wales. Ah, Gentle Richard for plague the rake, Helen the rebel here in Wales. Ah, gentle Richard, many a hot breakfast have we been at together, and now since, like one of Mars his frozen knights, I must hang up my weapon upon this tree, and come per misericordiam to the mad potter Mortimer. Wring thy hands, friar, and sing a pitiful farewell to thy pike-staff at parting.
And the friar, having sung his farewell to his pikestaff, he actually sings a song to his pikestaff to say goodbye. I'm sure it must be beautiful. I actually seriously would not. I'd like that to be a searingly beautiful moment, because I think that would be beautifully absurd. Takes his leave of Cambria and exits the friar. We're going to see him again very, very shortly. Any thoughts on this little momentette? Alan.
I'm just reminded of the Pratchett line about the song which is alluded to but never actually stated, of the wizard and his staff, which from the context is probably a rugby song would be a cleaned up version of.
Yeah, I think there's all sorts of potential there. Let's move on, however, because the friar will be returning any second now. Enter Mortimer with his soldiers and Elinor, the other Elinor, the Lady Elinor, not the Queen Elinor.
Bind fast the traitor and bring him away, that the law may justly pass upon him and receive the reward of monstrous treason and villainy. Stain to the name and honour of his noble country for you that slew Lluellen and presented us with his head. The king shall reward your fortune and chivalry. Sweet lady, abate not thy looks so heavenly to the earth. God and the King of England hath honour for thee in store, and Mortimer's heart at service and at thy commandment.
Thanks, gentle lord, but alas, who can blame Elinor to accuse her stars that in 1 hour hath lost honour and contentment?
And in 1 hour may your ladyship recover both, if you vouchsafe to be advised by your friends. But what makes the friar here upon his merry bones?
Oh, Potter, Potter, the friar doth sue. Now his old master is slain and gone to heaven new.
Ah, sweet Lluellen, how at thy death I rue.
Well said, friar, better once than never. Give me thy hand. My cunning shall fail me, but we will be fellows yet. And now Robin Hood is gone. It shall cost me hot water, but thou shalt be King Edward's man. Only I enjoin thee this. Come not too near the fire, but good friar, be at my hand.
Oh, sir, no, sir, not so, sir. I was warned too lately, none of that flesh I love.
Come on, and for those that have made their submission and given their names in the king's name, I pronounce their pardon, and so God save King Edward.
And exit all from Wales.
They're literally on the border there.
Yeah, let's leave Wales now, and the play I may or may not return there. It's interesting. I have this image of the friar after the last scene, sort of doing sneaky walking away action. I find it interesting. Mortimer, it feels like it's a demonstration thing in front of Elinor, isn't it? Of you naughty soldier killing Lluellen. Oh, how could you do that? This poor woman's traumatized. How could you do that? Because he obviously loves her. You feel sorry for the soldier to a degree. He was kind of target number one. Lois.
Yeah, I think that line, come not near the fire, we've had it before, and I think it actually refers to the friar making advances to Elinor. You know, because he says he's learned his lesson in the earlier scene. So I think Mortimer probably beat him up for doing that, as far as I can make out.
Yes, that makes sense. Sarah.
Going back to what you were saying about the about Mortimer and the soldier, that could be quite good. Then you could play that last bit, the king shall reward your fortune and chivalry, as quite a nice aside. Like, you know, he could be, oh, you're terrible man, and in front of Elinor, and then he just kind of, whispers him, like reassures him as he leaves.
Okay, yeah, I like that. That's an interesting possibility. Yeah.
I must say I'd taken the traitor to be somebody else, possibly David.
I think it's following on from the soldier murdery. It seemed logical that it's just to the random soldier.
Yeah. But I mean, David, yeah.
Could be to the friar.
I mean, there's no reason why he can't be talking to both, because if you put a full stop between his noble country and for you that slew Lluellen, then you get bind fast the traitor who is a stain to his country, and for you that slew Lluellen, the king shall reward you.
It was my impression that was two different people, but I couldn't tell you who the first person was.
I'm pretty certain it's David, but never mind, we'll see.
Well, I say there's no indication that he's there. I mean, it's the thing because he's talking about because the soldier has said he's going to bring the head and present it.
And in the previous sequence, David had actually basically said he was off to top himself.
Let's see if there's more evidence later on in the play as to how these pieces go together. Lots of interesting contradictory possibilities. I like interesting contradictory possibilities at this stage. It's always fun. Any additional alternate contradictory thoughts? No, excellent. Let's move on to what I've got down as scene 20 then. There's thunder and lightning.
Very, very frightening.
Me. When the Queen comes in. So, the Queen, the stage effects are really starting to vamp up this Queen. Enter Queen Elinor and Joan.
Why, Joan, is this the welcome that the clouds afford? How dare these disturb our thoughts, knowing I am Edward's wife and England's Queen, here thus on cherry green, to threaten me?
Ah, mother, blaspheme not so. Your blaspheming and other wicked deeds have caused our God to terrify your thoughts and call to mind your sinful fact committed against the Mayoress here of lovely London. And better Mayoress London never bred, so full of ruth and pity to the poor. Her have you made away, that London cries for vengeance on your head.
I rid her not. I made her not away. By heaven, I swear. Traitors they are to Edward and to England's Queen, did say I made away the Mayoress.
Take heed, sweet lady mother, swear not so. A field of prize corn will not stop their mouths that say you made away that virtuous woman.
Gape earth and swallow me, and let my soul sink down to heaven if I were author of that woman's tragedy. Oh, Joan, help! Joan, thy mother sinks.
Oh, mother, my help is nothing. Oh, she is sunk, and here the earth is new closed up again. Ah, Charing green, forever change thy hue, and never may thy grass grow green again, but wither and return to stones, because that beauteous Elinor sank on thee. Well, I will send unto the king my father's grace, and satisfy him of this strange mishap.
Exit Joan. So, yes, as we were all expecting, Queen Elinor has been sucked into the ground.
At Charing Green.
At Charing Green, yes. It can't be Charing Cross yet because
she isn't dead.
She isn't dead. So yes, the various crosses are all things that Edward put in after her death in her memory. So so it has to be Charing Green because he hasn't built a cross there yet.
How is she not dead?
She's not dead. No, she's just been sucked into the ground. This is all perfectly logical. I don't understand your problem.
Okay, right. So she's still alive under the ground.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know that, but
yeah.
You shouldn't make any assumptions with this play.
Okay.
It's just going to get weirder.
Okay.
Yeah. It's all perfect. It happens all the time. Lynn, I saw a hand.
Yeah, well, I love the sort of hierarchy of values that's implied here. You know, you're just sort of a generally unpleasant person, and then you threaten people with mutilation. That's not good. But if you blaspheme and forswear yourself right into the ground, don't do that. That's over the line.
Yeah.
Kill somebody, you know, not good. But blaspheming God and swearing a lie, yeah, we're not going to put up with that.
Other thoughts? Lois?
But it's not just that she blasphemes, it's that she actually wishes this on herself. I mean, she says, if I'm lying, let me sink down to hell. So what do you know? She sinks down to hell.
Yes, it's like Earl Godwin. If I killed him, may this bread choke me. He takes a mouthful of bread, and next thing you know, he's dead at their feet. It's a bad thing to do, is to make these extravagant bargains with God.
Yeah, it has happened in a few other plays as well, though I can't immediately think of too many examples. But I'm sure we've had it once or twice.
Poetic justice.
Yeah, exactly. Any additional thoughts? No, let's move on. Scene 21. And, you know, it's very different from the first session when we had 5 incredibly long scenes. And now they go, bam, bam, bam. We're going through them. As the play moves towards a climax, it's all happening here because, you know what, we're heading north. Alarum, a charge after long skirmish, assault, flourish. Enter King Edward with his train and Balliol prisoner. So that's the Berwick over with. Edward speaketh.
Now, trothless king, what fruits have braving boasts? What end hath treason but a sudden fall? Such as have known thy life and bringing up have praised thee for thy learning and thy art. How comes it then that thou forgett'st thy books that school thee to forget ingratitude? Unkind, this hand hath anointed thee a king, this tongue pronounced the sentence of thy ruth. If thou in lieu of mine unfeigned love hast levied arms for to attempt my crown, now see thy fruits, thy glories are dispersed, and his, for like sith thou hast passed thy bounds, thy sturdy neck must stoop to bear this yoke.
I took this lesson, Edward, from my book, to keep a just equality of mind, content with every fortune as it comes. So canst thou threat no more than I expect.
So, sir, your moderation is enforced. Your goodly glosses cannot make it good.
Then I will keep in silence what I mean, since Edward thinks my meaning is not good.
Oh, nay, Balliol, speak forth if there yet remain a little remnant of persuading art.
If cunning have power to win the king, let those employ it that can flatter him. If honoured deed may reconcile the king, lies in me to give and him to take.
Why, what remains for Balliol now to give?
Allegiance as becomes a royal king.
What league of faith when league is broken once?
The greater hope in them that once have fallen.
That foolish are those monarchs that do yield a conquered realm upon submissive vows.
There, take my crown and so redeem my life.
Ay, sir, that was the choicest plea of both. For whoso quells the pomp of haughty minds, and breaks their staff whereon they build their trust, is sure in wanting power they carry not harm. Balliol shall live, but yet within such bounds that if his wings grow fleg, they may be clipped.
And the scene ends. I love a scene that opens with what would read like a modern sound cue on my laptop. You know, long skirmish assault flourish, number 1. Short skirmish assault flourish, 5. You know, that's how I'd mix them. That's how I'd label them all. Thoughts about this scene? What's going on?
Edward has succeeded and is pointing out that Balliol was his subsidiary king. There's this thing that Edward seems to be saying at one point that Balliol was trying to be King of England, but I don't think that's so.
So how does the scene sort of conclude? I mean, where are we left in terms of their relations?
Balliol is now an English prisoner on bail, effectively. He's...
I mean, he's been put back in his place, hasn't he? But it's like, I don't know, after all that to and froing with the Welsh, this seems a trifle anticlimactic.
Yes.
It is the problem. We are fighting a plot on about 4 fronts at the moment. We've got the tying up of the Welsh plot line, we've got the Scottish plot line, we've got the Queen Elinor plot line, and then the sort of in-betweeny stuff that lives between those various threads that are sort of flanging about all over the place. So yeah, it is that sense of where is our focus, where at the moment our focus is sort of everywhere, and it's difficult to give more time to this because this is already quite a long play. You know, where do you keep your focus? Balliol's always felt a bit like an aside, frankly. Even though I'd have thought in many ways it's the more important area of history, but who knows? Additional thoughts before we move on? Alan?
I'm not sure that you would say it was the more important part of history because from an English perspective, the victory over Wales was decisive and has lasted pretty well ever since. That over Scotland hasn't.
Yes, but that in the sense makes it more important. It's a much more sort of active area of conflict and has a lot more consequences in lots of ways that echo down the centuries.
Yes, and they didn't make a film about Lluellen.
This is true.
Couldn't get
anyway, yes. Any additional thoughts, Alexandra?
I wonder whether it's in the staging that this could be presented as much more important than the number of lines would suggest. Because what happens is Balliol goes from being a puppet king to being a prisoner. And this thing of your crown, my crown, you threatening my crown, have my crown business might be somehow, I mean, it's clearly a lot of it is symbolic, but I wonder if that can be more clearly illustrated. Is this not the Balliol who is famously described as Tomb Tabard? So the one who's kind of all his honorifics get ripped off his I don't know what to call it.
Scotch
representation. Sorry?
Scotchen. Good word is scotchen. Never knew what it meant.
Of his heraldic representation. So yeah, there might perhaps be something in this that makes it a much bigger thing in the staging, whether or not that was intended originally.
Okay, good thoughts. Okay, let's move on. Let's head to enter the Potter and the Potter's wife. We can assume that these are different Potters to any other Potters that have been hinted at earlier because of their location, because it's near the Potter's Hithe, and there's John Herman. So actually, maybe John Herman is not the Potter. Maybe that is Herman. No, it's probably his husband. Yeah, it's probably just very badly written out, isn't it? Just the husband. Anyway, let's find out how it goes. Potter's wife and John.
John, come away. You go as though you slept, a great knave, and be afraid of a little thundering and lightning.
Call you this a little thundering? I am sure my breeches find it a great deal, for I am sure they are stuffed with thunder.
They are stuffed with a fool, are they not? Will it please you to carry the lantern a little handsomer, and not to carry it with your hands in your slops?
Slops, quoth you? Would I had tarried at home by the fire, and then I should not have need to put my hands in my pockets. But I lay my life, I know the reason of this foul weather.
Do you know the reason? I pray thee, John, tell me, and let me hear this reason.
I lay my life. Some of your gossips be cross-legged that we came from, but you are wise, mistress, for you come not away and will not stay a-gossiping in a dry house all night.
Would it please you to walk and leave off your knavery? But stay, John, what's that riseth out of the ground? Jesus bless us, John, look how it riseth. Higher and higher.
By my troth, mistress, 'tis a woman. Good Lord, do women grow? I never saw none grow before.
Hold thy tongue, thou foolish knave. It is the spirit of some woman.
Ah! Let me see. Where am I? On Charing Green. Aye, on Charing Green here, hard by Westminster, where I was crowned, and Edward there made king. Aye, 'tis true, so it is, and therefore, Edward, kiss not me unless you will straight perfume your lips, Edward.
Ora pro nobis. John, I pray, fault your prayers. For my life, it is the queen that shaves thus, who sunk this day on Charing Green, and now is risen up on Potter's Hythe, and therefore, truly, John, I'll go to her.
Here let the potter's wife go to the queen.
Welcome, good woman. What place is this? Sea or land? I pray show to me.
Your grace need not to fear, you are on firm ground. It is the Potter's Hythe, and therefore cheer your majesty, for I will see you safe conducted to the court, if case your highness be therewithal pleased.
Make a noise, westward ho!
Aye. Good woman, conduct me to the court, that there I may bewail my sinful life and call to God to save my wretched soul. Woman, what noise is this I hear?
And like your grace, it is the waterman that calls for passengers to go westward now.
That fits my turn, for I will straight with them to Kingston, to the court, and there repose me till the king come home. Therefore, sweet woman, conceal what thou hast seen, and lead me to these watermen, for here doth Elinor droop.
Come, come, here's a goodly leading of you, is there not? First you must make us afeard, and now I must be troubled in carrying of you. I would you were honestly laid in your bed, so that I were not troubled with you.
And they exit, carrying the collapsed queen. I'm slightly disappointed I didn't have my Swanee whistle to hand for this moment. Just the slow rising from the trap, presumably of the queen, you know, quite slowly. I feel for full comic effect. It's yeah, I you know, we've got a basically set up call and response thing with the Potter's wife, and John's doing the funny, and the Potter's wife is setting up the gags for the clown. Whether it's possibly the Friar doubling here because he's got a scene at least either side to get changed into another costume. If we're assuming that he's one of our primary funny people, who knows? But yeah, so yeah, she's fine. I say she's fine. I don't think she's fine. I think internally she's not good. I think she's really not in a good place. We were trying to figure out the quickest tube route, by the way. So it's to get across.
She presumably made it. She made the first tube route.
Yeah, that's exactly that. But for some reason, she still had to change at Waterloo.
It's only 3 stops on the Circle line.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, how muddy does she come up?
Yes, yes, I was thinking that. Is she covered like in? Yeah, that would be so funny.
I mean, what you'd presumably do is have 2 dresses: a good-looking dress and then a dress that is basically brown for when she comes back up again, and then you can just add a little bit of muck and things. Maybe a hat made of earth, sort of shaped about like that, with some grass.
Like her crown.
Yeah.
And it's just all like stuffed with mud on the top. Like, yeah.
And the tree on top of it.
Yeah, a small shrubbery.
A shrubbery.
Yeah, I'd be willing to bet money that there's something kind of significant about the difference between Charing Green and Potter's Heath as well. It's like there's some kind of a downgrade in prestige associated with those locations as well, I bet.
I'm sure, but the origin of this myth is A, very late, and B, totally unknown. I mean, it's Queen's Hithe. It's the foundation myth for the name Queen's Hithe. That it was called Potter's Hithe, but the Queen popped up there.
And this, of course, all happened. I mean, it's, you know, it's obviously true, so it's fine. Play says it happened, so it must be true.
I thought at first that "Here doth Elinor droop" was a stage direction, but I don't think it is. No,
I think she's stating what she's physically doing. Comedy fall, if I was doing it. Okay. Any additional thoughts on this?
I don't think the Potter actually ever appears. I think John is not the Potter's wife's husband.
Yeah, the stage direction does seem to hint that it's more a servant character, and he reads like a servant character. He's very Hodge-like.
Yeah.
Though whether the Potter is there in spirit just doesn't say anything or not.
Which could, in fact, be very funny.
Yes, he never gets a word in edgeways. Yes, Alan.
I was actually reading it a different way, that effectively you were getting a semi-comic reprise of the relationship between Elinor and Edward, between the Potter and his wife. Yeah, another henpecked chap.
I do like very much John's line about his arse thunder issues, following the thunder. I think that's...
Fart gag's always a good idea.
Always good, always good. Anyway, I think we've possibly dug into that as much as we can. So let's go into the next scene, scene 23, as I've got it. Opening stage direction is not desperately helpful because it's sort of describing things, but not actually, it's weird. But I'll just say it as it is. Enter two messengers, the one that David shall be hanged, the other of the Queen's sinking. So we as reading the stage directions knows what's about to happen, which I suppose is helpful.
Honour and fortune wait upon the crown of princely Edward, England's valiant king.
Edward?
Thanks, messenger, and if my God vouchsafe that winged honour wait upon my throne, I'll make her spread her plumes upon their heads, whose true allegiance doth confirm the crown. What news in Wales? How wends our business there?
The first disturber of that wasted soil, with his and Helen's, is surprised my king. And in assurance he shall start no more. Breathless he lies, and headless to my lords. The circumstance these lines shall here unfold.
A harmful weed, by wisdom rooted out, can never hurt the true engrafted plant. But what's the news Sir Thomas Spenser brings?
Wonders, my lord, wrapped up in homely words and letters to inform your majesty.
Oh, heavens, what may these miracles portend? Nobles, my queen is sick, but what is more, read, brother Edmund, read a wondrous chance.
And Edmund reads a line of the Queen's sinking.
And I nor heard nor read so strange a thing.
Sweet Queen, this sinking is a surfeit tale of pride, wherewith thy woman's heart did swell, a dangerous malady in the heart to dwell. Lords, march we towards London now in haste. I will go see my lovely Elinor and comfort her after this strange affright, and where she is, importing to have talk and secret conference with some friars of France. Mun, thou with me, and I with thee will go, and take the sweet confession of my Nell. We will have French enough to parley with the Queen.
Might I advise your royal majesty, I would not go for millions of gold. Or what knows your grace disguise it if you wend, what you may hear in secrecy revealed. that may appall and discontent your highness. A goodly creature is your Elinor, brought up in niceness and in delicacy. Then listen not to her confession, Lord, to wound thy heart with some unkind conceit. But as for Lancaster, he may not go.
Brother, I am resolved, and go I will, if God give life and cheer my dying queen. Why, man, whate'er King Edward hears, it lies in God and him to pardon all. I'll have no ghostly fathers out of France. To England hath learned clerks and confessors to comfort and absolve as men may do, and I'll be ghostly father for this once.
Edmund, thou mayst not go, although thou die. And yet, how mayst thou hear thy king deny? Edward is gracious, merciful, meek, and mild, but furious when he finds he was beguiled.
Messenger, hie thee back to Shrewsbury. Bid Mortimer thy master speed him fast, and with his fortune welcome us to London. I long to see my beauteous, lovely queen.
And he exits. I hope everyone enjoyed Spenser's lines there. Such a central character to the whole narrative. Feels like an extra just wanted to be given a proper named part. You know, when you're in a television series, you know, and you just have, you know, man with dog as your name in the credits. You know, it doesn't look good. Give us a name, man. Give us a name. There's lots of things here. I think it's really interesting. Is this the first time anyone's actually said, Edward, your wife's a bit dodgy? Has anyone actually said that to the king yet in the play? Because it's interesting. It turns up now, quite late on. And the way King Edward says, no, we're not having any foreign priests. No, we'll have good, proper English. I'll take a confession, you know. And again, general distrust of foreigners seems to be, again, a continuing theme in the text. Alan, your hand, I see.
Yes, I think that there's a misattribution at the beginning of that scene. I think the two messengers are actually what we've got down as both Messenger 1 and Messenger 2, who are the ones who are telling the story about David, and Spenser is the second messenger who is giving the information about the Queen.
I think you're absolutely right. Unless there are two messengers from Wales who are jockeying each other to be the one to give the word.
That's the other possibility, but that just seems de trop.
I would certainly say in any production, that's again what I would do. I mean, I possibly wouldn't even have two messengers at all. I'd probably, you know, maybe just, you know, it's just, it looks fiddly and complicated. Why give him a name? Why give him a name at all? We don't care. You give someone a name, you know, we want to know. Dan's disagreeing.
Yeah, that was a big line. Maybe they actually gave it to one of the lead actors who wasn't in this play.
Yeah.
Lois.
Oh, just a subtle thought, but this is presumably the Spenser who is going to be quite important in the reign of Edward II. So possibly this is stuck in there for the benefit of those who know that.
Yeah, set up for the next play, or possible. Yeah, I like that. Alexandra.
Also, with the jockeying for attention, it could be that, as has happened through the rest of this play, the same person gets labelled two different ways, and we've just missed that. So that first messenger is Spenser. He just only gets relabeled as Spenser once he's been addressed as such. So you'd get, I want to tell the king something. No, I'm going to tell him about Wales. And then the king goes, yeah, what did the other guy want to say? More important things, which is about your queen.
Yeah,
that is good.
Yeah, that
I like that.
Still.
Yeah, there is we could pass this all sorts of ways. I think, but I think that's my favourite so far. Not that I play favourites, obviously I don't. So Edward is still very, very in love, isn't he? Isn't he? He's still very in love. Yes.
I like the sense of family. I love the way Ned calls his brother Mung, short for Edmund. I think it's lovely.
Yeah.
There's Ned and Nell and Mon, and you know they're it's all happy families till it isn't.
Yes, and yes, there is that question in my mind. I think I said before we went on camera, just the idea of, you know, the family dynamic of this, and you know, there's a family drama in here as well. I think some people brought that up yesterday. Of just what frames do we view this play through, and that I think is a frame we could really play around with. I quite like, you know, sod all this foreign war stuff. What's going on at home? What's going on between them? Okay, we have another short scene before we go into our final unit of action. So we're all wondering, scene 24, enter David, drawn on a hurdle with Mortimer and officers, accompanied with the Friar, the Novice, the Harper, and Llewellyn's head on a spear.
Honour for, honour for.
Hold up your torches for dropping.
A fair procession, so David be of good cheer. You cannot go out of the way having so many guides at hand.
Be sure of that, for we go all the highway to the gallows, I warrant you.
I go where my star leads me, and die in my country's just cause and quarrel.
The star that twinkled at thy birth, good brother mine, hath marred thy mirth. Old said saw earth must to earth. Next year will be a piteous dearth. Of hemp I dare lay a penny. This year is hanged so many.
Well said, Morgan Piggott, Harper and prophet for the king's own mouth.
Tunda te de te do do te dum. This is the day, the time is come. Morgan Piggott's prophecy and Lord Llewellyn's tragedy.
Who saith the prophet is an ass, whose prophecies come so to pass? Say, or should I say us? Hang on, I'll take that back. Who saith the prophet is an ass, whose prophecies come so to pass? Said he not oft, and sung it too, Llewellyn after much ado, should in spite heave up his chin, and be the highest of his king, and see aloft Llewellyn's head impaled with a crown of lead. My lord, let not that soothsayer Jack, that hath such cunning in his jack.
David, hold still your clack, lest your heels make your neck crack.
Gentle prophet, and ye love me, forsake me not. 'Tis the worst luck in the world to stir a witch or anger a wise man. Master Sheriff, have we any haste? Let's give my horses some more hay.
And they exit. Yeah, there's something interestingly demonic about all of that, isn't there? Something very dark. The head on the stick and the drawing the David, who once again exhausting part David in this session. So many lines. Yeah, it's reminding me a bits of Jack Straw, actually. Some of the way the random bits of sort of semi-verse and song and stuff that's going on in it that I'm really liking. So yeah, thoughts about this little scenette?
Well, I think David is obviously going to execution. Llewellyn is already dead. What are going to be the fate of the Friar, the Novice, and the Harper? I don't know. Whether they're also going to execution or not, I'm not sure.
Wasn't it hinted earlier that they were forgiven?
Yes, Mortimer.
So they're now leading him to execution, perhaps.
Of course, because they've switched sides, haven't they?
Yeah. Elizabeth, did you wave?
Yes, I did. Is it me or is the action dragging a bit? Is it because yesterday I felt that the middle was quite fast paced, and now we're getting through a lot of scenes, but it seems to drag a little. Or is that just me?
It might be just because the way we're reading it, because we're stopping and starting each scene. So, you know, when you do a long scene and we just read it, it gets its own momentum. Whereas now, because we have these extra scenes in between, we're maybe not getting that sense of pace going.
The pace.
Yeah. Sarah?
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean, Elizabeth, because I think because we have those big scenes, and I know there was a lot of people coming in and going out, so they were like scenes within scenes, but I think like you were saying earlier, Rob, we've got like what, 4 plots, or at least 3.5, and I guess it's just because everything is having to be wrapped up. Maybe there's a sense of, oh, we've got to do this bit now, oh, and then we've got to do this bit, and then we've got to get this bit sorted out. I don't know, maybe that's it.
Other thoughts before we go into what is effectively the final scene, sort of. Okay, let's run this bad boy to bed, as it were. Elinor in childbed with her daughter Joan and other ladies.
Call forth those renowned friars come from France, and raise me, gentle ladies, in my bed. And while this faltering engine of my speech I mean to utter my concealed guilt, I may respect and so repent my sins.
What plague afflicts your royal majesty?
Oh, Joan, I perish through a double wars. First, in this painful prison of my soul, a world of dreadful things hope thee to sight. And nature, having lost her working powers, yields up her earthly fortunes unto death. Next, over war, my soul is overpressed. In thee, my conscience loaded with misdeeds, sits seeing my conscience to ensue, without a special favour from above.
Your grace must account it a warrior's cross, to make resist where danger there is none. Subdue your fever by precious art, and help you still through hope of heavenly aid.
The careless sleep rule on the mountain tops, that see the seaman floating on the surge. The threatening winds come springing with the floods to overwhelm and drown his crazed keel. His tack is torn, his sails borne overboard. How pale like vallow flowers the mountain stands upon his hatches, waiting for his jerk, wringing his hands that ought to play the pump. May blame his fear that laboureth not for life. So thou, poor soul, may tell a servile tale, may counsel me, but I that prove thy pain may hear thee talk, but not redress my harm. But ghastly death already is addressed to glean the latest blossom of my life. My spirit fails me. Are these friars come?
Enter the king and his brothers in friars' weeds.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Draw near, grave fathers, and approach my bed. Forbear our presence, ladies, for a while, and leave us to our secret conference.
What cause hath moved your royal majesty to call your servants from their country's bounds for to attend your pleasure here in England's court?
See you not, holy friars, mine estate, my body weak, inclining to my grave?
We see, and sorrow for thy pain, fair queen.
By this eternal sign of my defects, friars, consecrate mine internal grief. My soul, oh wretched soul, within this breast, faint for to mount the heavens with wings of grace. 100 by flocking troops of sin that stop my passage to my wished hours.
The nearer, Elinor, so the greatest hope of health, and deign to us for to impart your quiet, who by our prayers and counsel ought to arm aspiring souls to scale the heavenly grace.
Shame and remorse doth stop my course of speech.
Madam, you need not dread our conference, who by the order of the Holy Church are all anointed to sacred secrecy.
Did I not think, nay, were I not assured, your wisdoms would be silent in that cause, no fear would make me to bewray myself. But, gentle fathers, I have thought it good not to rely upon these Englishmen, but on your troths, you holy men of France. Then, as you love your life and England's weal, keep secret my confession from the king. For why my story nearly toucheth him, whose love compared with my loose delights, with many sorrows that my heart affrights.
My heart misgives.
Be silent, fellow Friar.
In pride of youth, when I was young and fair and gracious in the King of England's sight, the day before his highness should possess the pleasure of my wedlock bed, caitiff, accursed monster that I was, his brother Edmund, beautiful and young, upon my bridal couch by my consent, enjoyed the flower and favour of my love.
The king beholdeth his brother woefully.
And I became a traitress to my lord.
Facinus scelus infandum nefas.
Madam, through sickness, weakness, and your wits, 'twere very good to bethink yourself before you speak.
Good father, not so weak, but that I wot my heart doth rent to think upon that time. But why exclaims this holy friar so? Oh, pray then for my faults, religious man.
'Tis charity in men of my degree to sorrow for our neighbours' heinous sins. And, madam, though some promise love to you and zeal to Edmund, brother to the king, I pray the heavens you both may soon repent. But might it please your highness to proceed unto this sin, a worser doth succeed.
For Joan of Acon, the supposed child and daughter of my lord the English king, is basely born, begotten of a friar. Such time as I was there arrived in France, his only true and lawful sons, my friends, he is my hope. His son that should succeed is Edward of Carnarvon, lately born. Now all the scruples of my troubled mind I sighing sound within your reverend ears. Oh, pray for pity, pray for I must die. Remit, my God, the folly of my youth. My groaned spirit attends thy mercy's seat.
And Queen Elinor, in theory, dies, but seems to still say some dialogue. So I'm assuming this stage direction is misplaced.
Fathers, farewell. Commend me to my king. Commend me to my children and my friends. And close mine eyes, for death will have his due.
And Queen Elinor does indeed now die.
Blushing, I shut these thine enticing lamps, the wanton baits that made me suck my vein. Priapus hardened flames did ne'er reflect more hideous flames than from my breast arise. What fault more vile unto thy dearest lord? Our daughter base begotten of a priest, and Ned, my brother, partner of my love. Oh, that those eyes that lighten Caesar's brain, oh, that those looks that mastered Phoebus' brand, or else those looks that stained Medusa's far, should shine discreet desire and lawless lust. Unhappy king, dishonored in thy stock, hence feigned weeds, unfeigned is my grief.
Dread prince, my brother, if my vows avail, I call to witness heaven in my behalf. If zealous prayer might drive you from suspect, I bend my knees and humbly crave this boon, that you will drive misdeeds out of your mind. May never good betide my life, my lord, if once I dreamed upon this damned deed. But my deceased sister and your queen, afflicted with recureless maladies, impatient of her pain, grew lunatic, discovering errors never dreamed upon. To prove this true, the greatest men of all within their learned volumes do discord. that all extremes, and in naught but extremes. Then think, O king, her agony in death bereaves her sense and memory at once, so that she spoke, she knew nor how nor what.
Sir, fain would your highness hide your faults by cunning vows and glozing terms of art, and well thou mayst delude these listening ears, yet ne'er allege by proof this jealous heart. Traitor, thy head shall ransom my disgrace. Daughter of darkness, whose accused bower the poet feigned to live upon Avernus, whereas Cimmerian's darkness checks the sun. David's jealousy afflicts me not so sore. Fair Queen Elinor could never be so false. Aye, but she vowed these treasons at her death, a time not fit to fashion monstrous lies. Ah, my ungrateful brother as thou art, could not my love, nay, more, could not the law, nay, further, could not nature thee allure for to refrain from this incestuous sin? Haste from my sight. Call John of Acon here.
Exit Edmund.
The lukewarm spring distilling from his eyes, his oaths, his vows, his reasons, rested with remorse, from forth his breast empoisoned with suspect. Fain would I deem that false, I find too true.
Enter Joan of Acon.
I come to know what England's king commands. I wonder why your highness greets me thus, with strange regard and unacquainted terms.
Ah, Joan, this wonder needs must wound thy breast, for it hath well nigh slain my wretched heart.
What is the queen, my sovereign mother, dead? Woe, unhappy lady, woe begone.
The queen is dead. Yet, Joan, lament not thou, poor soul, guiltless art thou for this deceit that hath more cause to curse than to complain.
My dreadful soul, assailed with doleful speech, joins me to bow my knees unto the ground, beseeching your most royal majesty to rid your woeful daughter of suspect.
Aye, daughter Joan, poor soul, thou art deceived. The King of England is no scorned priest.
What, was not the Lady Elinor your spouse? And am not I the offspring of your loins?
Aye, but when ladies list to run astray, the poor supposed father wears the horn, and pleading leave their liege in princes' laps. Joan, thou art daughter to a lecherous friar. A friar was thy father, hapless Joan. Thy mother in profession vows no less, and I filed wretch which sorrowed heard no less.
What am I then, a friar's base-born brat? Presumptuous wretch, why press I for my king? How can I look my husband in the face? Why should I live, since my renown is lost? Away, thou wanton weed, hence world's delight.
She falls grovelling on the ground, though as it's a stage direction, it possibly lives at the end of the speech, as indeed will the next stage direction.
L'orecchia bassa come vinto e stanco, destruir can bocca il fren, gli sproni al fianco.
Oh, sommo Dio, come i giudizi umani. Spesso offuscati son da un membro oscuro. Hapless and wretched, lift up thy heavy head. Curse not so much as this unhappy chance. Unconstant fortune still will have her course.
My king, let fortune have her course. Fly thou, my soul, and take a better course. Eyes me, from royal state I now am fallen. You purple springs that wander in my veins, and whilom wants to feed my heavy heart. Now, all at once, make haste, and pity me, and stop your powers, and change your native course. Dissolve to air your lukewarm bloody streams, and cease to be, that I may be no more. Your curled locks draw from this cursed head, abase her pomp, for Joan is basely born. Gloucester, Ah, poor Gloucester hast the wrong. Die, wretch. Haste, death, for Joan hath lived too long.
She suddenly dies at the Queen's bed's feet.
Revive thee, hapless lady, grieve not thus. In vain speak I, for she revives no more. Poor hapless soul, thy own expected moans hath wrought her sudden and untimely death.
Enter Edmund, Gloucester, running with ladies, and conveys Joan of Acon away.
Lords, ladies, haste. Ah, Gloucester, art thou come? Then must I now present a tragedy. Thy Joan is dead, yet grieve thou not her fall. She was too base a spouse for such a prince.
But spy you then with heavens to work my harms? O sweet assuagers of our mortal miss, desired death, deprive me of my life, that I in death may end my life and love.
Gloucester, thy king is partner of thy heaviness, although nor tongue nor eyes bewray his mien. For I have lost a flower as fair as thine, a love most dear, for Elinor is dead. But since the heavenly ordinance decrees that all things change in their fixed time, be thou content, and bear it in thy breast, thy swelling grief, as these I must mine. Thy Joan of Acon and my queen deceased shall have that honour as beseems their state. You peers of England, set in royal pomp, these breathless bodies be entombed straight, with triad collars covered all with black. Let Spanish steeds, as swift as sleeting wind, convey these princes to their funeral. Before them let 100 mourners ride, in every time of their enforced abode, rear up a cross in token of their work, whereon fair Elinor's picture shall be placed. Arrived at London, near our palace bounds, inter my lovely Elinor late deceased, and in remembrance of her royalty, erect a rich and stately carved cross, whereon her stature shall with glory shine, and henceforth see you call it Charing Cross, for why the chancest and the choicest queen that ever did delight my royal eyes, there dwell in darkness, was I die with grief. But soft, what tidings of these pursuivants?
And enter messenger approach from Mortimer.
Sir Roger Mortimer, with all success, as erst your grace by message did command, is here at hand in purpose to present your highness with his signs of victory, who trothless Balliol, their accursed king, with fire and sword doth threat Northumberland.
How one affliction calls another over. First, death torments me, then I feel disgrace. Against Lluellen he rebels in Wales, and false Balliol means to brave me too, but I will find provision for them all. My constancy shall conquer death and shame, and Mortimer, 'tis thou must haste to Wales, and rouse that rebel from his starting holes, and rid thy king of his contentious foe, whilst I, with Elinor, Gloucester, and the rest, with speedy journey gather up our force, and beat these braving Scots from out our bounds. Courage, brave soldiers, fate hath done their worst. Now virtue, let me triumph in thine aid.
Exit Edward from presumably the wrong part of the play. Final little mini scenette, which may be or problematic or not. Let's see. Gloucester is alone.
Now, Joan of Acon, let me mourn thy fall. Soul here alone, now set thee down and sigh. Sigh, hapless Gloucester, for thy sudden loss. Pale death, alas, hath banished all thy pride. Thy wedlock vows, how aught have I beheld? Thy eyes, thy looks, thy lips, and every part how nature store in them to shew their art, in shine, in shape, in colour and compare. But now hath death, the enemy of love, stained and deformed the shine, the shape, the reed, with pale and dimness, and my love is dead. Oh, dead thy love, vile wretch! Why am I living? So willeth fate, and I must be contented. All pomp and time must fade and grow to nothing. Wept I like Niobe, yet it profits nothing. Then cease my sighs, since I may not regain her. And woe to wretched death that thus hath slain her.
Exit Gloucester, and I didn't read the stage direction in the middle of that because it doesn't seem to have any particular bearing on what happened during the speech, and I kind of wanted to. It was going so nicely, but for the listeners at home, in the middle of that speech, enter Mortimer with the head of presumably Lluellen, but who knows? Those paying attention during this final section will have noticed that we seem to have material from a different part of the play, and it seems like at the end of the play we just have some random bits that should live somewhere else. So the messenger bit coming in seems to be connecting with earlier setup. Then we come back to a bit of Gloucester that could have lived in the middle of maybe even the King's speech or somewhere in that return. Let's go back to the scene itself that did make sense before we got to the sort of Dadaist qualities. Just put your hands up. Who was expecting the story to go there? Wasn't that a dramatic scene? Wasn't that fabulous? Wasn't that completely unsignposted? It was suddenly just going, what, it's your brother. I loved Alexandra's performance of that as well, just going, very nicely done, very nicely done. And then the Friar, and then it's even worse. It's a Friar, and then, and then his not daughter anymore comes in, and she just randomly dies. It's suddenly we've got turned what was quite a light-hearted play, even during battle scenes and death and destruction, suddenly goes full-on tragedy.
Yeah.
Who wants to leap in? I think I'm done. To a turn.
Expect Queen Elinor to die. I didn't expect that. The play really surprised me. It got me. I didn't expect that.
Lynn.
Well, on the one hand, yeah, I was completely shocked. It was like, oh, not only is she a bad person in lots of other ways, she's unfaithful. So, but I think what's great about it is that in a way it's like it's totally shocking, but in a way it's kind of consistent. Looking back, you're like kind of not surprising for Elinor. So
it's rewarding a second watch, isn't it, to look back and see, whether it was signposted in some of the dialogue in ways that you don't see unless you know.
It doesn't make sense until now, and you're like, oh yeah, actually, that's her.
And,
so, it's kind of great.
And the bit when she's going, my true-born son, and you're going, yes, which one? We need an heir. We need an heir. Oh, it's Edmund. Oh, it's fine. Whew. Other thoughts, Alan?
I'm wondering whether, in fact, what we've got here is something that was originally 2 plays, because the first 2/3 that we did actually seemed to have a reasonable degree of coherence. The stuff we've done today has been all over the damn place, and it almost reads like, these are odd bits of paper we found kicking around backstage, and let's just chuck them all at the printer and see what he can do with it.
I don't think I quite agree. I mean, there are bits clearly that are misplaced. I think what we've got is a play that sets up an awful lot of plot threads and then struggles to tie them together. They all sit, they're all signposted quite early on in terms of Wales and Scotland and elements there. I don't see that there's a neat place where you could say this is part 1, this is part 2, or even if you move some material around. I don't see that in the structure. I think it's structurally fine. It's just it's got too much stuff going on. Helen.
Yeah, I'm rather with Alan here, except I don't follow his chronology. I think there was an original play into which the ballad material, the story about the Queen and the Lady Mayoress and the sinking, and then the second ballad material, which we haven't dealt with, which is in fact about Elinor of Aquitaine, which is why they're French friars and not Spanish, and is about a completely different queen and a completely different set of children. And that ballad stuff has been shoehorned in to a play.
And you could possibly argue that the Robin Hood stuff was gratuitous as well.
Well, Robin Hood is always gratuitous, in my opinion, but that's something you just have to live with if you're looking at early modern plays.
It seems to fit the tone of that part of the plot, though. It is interesting. I think there's something about
Robin Hood?
The Robin Hood within the Lluellen rebellion stuff that seems to fit, but it is also, yeah. I mean, I could go with that. I don't know. I don't know myself. Other thoughts? Who agrees? Who disagrees? Leap in, wave at me.
I think
Tamara.
I think that theory makes sense. I'd have to read it again, basically, with that in mind.
Yeah, Lois.
I mean, I've read a bit about the play, and I know that was one theory about it, that it started out as a fairly straight history play, and then all the Elinor ballad material sort of got pushed into it. And it does seem to me, if one were to take that out, I don't know how you could really. I mean, it does end sort of logically with her death and a whole can of worms being opened. But it's odd, really, because it logically should end with something like bringing in the head of Lluellen and the submission of Balliol and Edward in charge of everything. It seems to be heading in that direction. And that would make it very like a lot of the other history plays of this period.
Anybody got any radically different theories on that thread? Helen?
Before I read the ballad, my first theory was that the only way you could deal with this was that the Queen was dying of puerperal fever. She was dying pretty much of having given birth to Edward of Carnarvon. And most of the rest of the stuff, the Mayoress and the sinking and all the rest of it, was her fever dream. I mean, you couldn't put it on stage, but that's how it's possibly not. But that's how it seemed to me, that she was raving, rather as Edmund says.
Yeah. Sarah, I saw a hand.
Yeah.
Radically different view?
I really like that theory of Helen's about the fever dream. I just think it could be that the ballad stuff was added in later, but if it was, then I would say that the ballad stuff is some of the best stuff in the play. I mean, I missed the ballad, so I don't know how it compares, but like you were saying earlier, Rob, it's her characterization is just so incredibly detailed. She's one of the most truthful and authentic characters in terms of the specifics of who she is and how she operates that we've come across, I think. And so if she was added, if all of that was added in later, I think the play is definitely enriched by it, actually. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to put that thread to bed because to a degree we're talking about the past and I'm more interested in the future. What do we do with this play? I've got various thoughts. I have to say at the moment I'm thinking Elinor a tragedy. You're taking all the Elinor material that we have and crafting a sort of mini show out of that, because I have to say I agree with Sarah that it's such an engaging thread. We had a discussion earlier in the week that we weren't quite engaging with Edward as a person with interiority. We sort of have now in the conjunction towards the end, and that there might be more to be pulled out of that. So we're going to come to final thoughts. I'm going to go around everyone in a moment. So hold fire. but also just the way this play is both incredibly huge and also very small at the same time, and whether in production you go for the huge or whether you go for the small. You know, because we've got a lot of semi-superfluous characters who could be elided, and thoughts about, and also across mediums, because we talked about the other day, you know, how would it work as almost a soap, you know, as a mini-series kind of thing, as audio or video or something like, or as, you know, film, you know, not just theatre itself. So I want to talk about potentials, what you'd be interested in doing with it. Sarah, your hand shot up, so I'm going to start with you. Final thoughts.
Well, I just had a comment on the fact that you said that we engaged with Edward more as he went through, but like we engaged with him as a husband. We didn't really engage with him as a king. I mean, he did some quite good stuff as king, but the reason the reason I engaged with him more as the play went on was within the context of his relationship to Elinor. So I think she is absolutely key to the play, and I would agree with you. I would take all her bits out and make a play of them. But if you were going to stage the whole thing, I think you could lose the Scottish scenes, honestly, because I don't know that they add that much. I'm sure historically they were very important, but dramatically, I would probably streamline them out.
Okay, Sarah, not so keen on the Scots, like Edward himself.
No. I love the. Can I just say, anyone out there, I love the Scots.
Thank you. 50% of my DNA is very happy with that statement. Tamara, final thoughts, ideas for future? You can disagree or agree. What's your pitch?
I mean, I obviously missed what would have probably been my favourite bit, because I'm always down for good Robin Hood. So I'm disappointed in that. However, this is the first time I'm probably ever going to play with that in my head, but I almost want to take the material we have on Elinor and go and rework that, take out the other plot strands, because it's the battle of the plots, this play, for me. Are we focusing on this? Are we focusing on that? Or what? And because Elinor is such a great character, I completely agree with Sarah, I almost want more on that. So I almost want to go away and expand what is there, which is, you know, the first time that I'm saying this about any of the plays that we've read.
It's interesting. In first session, we didn't actually talk about Elinor very much. It was we were all talking about, you know, who is Edward. Helen, final thoughts.
I'm just utterly, completely and totally baffled by the whole thing. I don't think it stands very well as a play as we have it now. And I'm sure there is a play there, but where it is as yet beyond me.
Fine. Yeah. Okay.
Disagree,
Lynn.
please. I want to know.
I think it in production. I think it all seems to. I can see it flowing perfectly well. There'll be bits that are less successful than others, but I as a play, it seems to function perfectly satisfactorily. You need to move some stuff around, but you know that's no more. You know, it's not actually a huge job. Change a few words here and there and move some speeches and then make a few cuts. I don't see fundamentally that this play doesn't make sense in a way that, say, you know, the end of John of Bordeaux didn't make sense because it wasn't there. Dan, you didn't have much to say last time. Do you have any final thoughts for us today?
I really enjoyed reading this play, the 2/3 that I read. I thought there were a lot of bits and bobs, and like you, Rob, I think that it does, even if things were shoehorned in there, I felt that there was still a coherence, there was still a coherent story. Maybe some parts are better than other parts, but I'm not a fan if one were ever to stage this play, considering it's not ever staged, that I'd rather keep as much of it intact as possible and if things are cut, it would be more it wouldn't be entire scenes, but just lines here and there, or words changed here and there, just to get the story flowing. But as all of these plays that we read, the interest in them would probably be more from the idea that, well, I've never seen this play. I don't really want to see this completely different production and not the play text itself, because we are trying to have it fit to a modern audience. I'd rather see as much as possible the play as it stands, even if this text is not the best text in terms of structurally put together by the printer or whoever. So yeah, there weren't big problems with this play that I've seen in other plays where, God, that bit was awful, or it doesn't seem to make sense at all. Not at all. I really love historical plays to begin with, and I like the comic bits. I like the Robin Hood scene in there. Gratuitous, perfect. I want to see that in history plays, in fact.
Yes, it's well, we could do the Edward trilogy, I suppose. We've got plenty of Edwards available. Alexandra, final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with Daniel on the idea that this could be presented without significant structural alteration by doing a lot of preparation and adjustment in a textual, dramaturgical, directorial sense, so that we can make you can give clarity to the thread or the sort of the linear storyline that involves Elinor, for example, so that that's clearly or the familial relationships, so that clearly shines through, but also give some clarity to the stories that happen in different physical parts of the world. And we've had, we have looked at stories, modern and of this period, that have multiple threads, which sort of either intersect or run in parallel. So it's not something that I think, an audience that watches Game of Thrones would have any difficulty with following something so episodic and so kind of in bits and pieces. If all those bits and pieces are very clearly delineated. So in that sense, I think that it would be an epic undertaking for a production, but a really interesting one.
Yes, it's much bigger in scope, and it's about the same length as, say, Thomas of Woodstock, which we similarly all love. But in terms of the scope of the action and the number of characters, it is a much bigger canvas. So yeah, clarity of who, especially if you've got a lot of doubling as well. There are advantages to the visual side of things, being able to explain things that reading this script was really difficult with. But also there are some disadvantages. Very quickly, Alexandra.
Yeah, one last point. So one way of doing that could be using the miniseries format via web series, where you've got very short episodes that are sort of, in one place, or let's say in two places, and that makes it easier to follow because you're not looking at everything all at once. It's in bite-sized chunks.
Lois, final thoughts?
I don't know if I, given that you're talking about a hypothetical production, whether I should mention the one production I did actually see, which was one of the Red Not Dead ones in the Wanamaker. But
go ahead. How clear was it?
Well, it was surprisingly clear. I mean, they got rid of crazy inconsistencies like announcing a rebellion by Lluellen after he'd been killed and so on. They changed things a lot. The text was completely quite effectively cleaned up so that it all made sense, and things didn't happen in the wrong place. And they kept calling the friar Hugh rather than David, so as not to confuse him with David. I thought actually, both the Edward, who was John Hopkins, an extremely good actor, and the Elinor, whose name I can't remember, but who was also extremely good. And in fact, a lot of the cast were very good. The thing obviously was done with just a few hours rehearsal and script in hand, but I think everybody enjoyed it immensely. And I did want to say one thing. This is something you wouldn't do in a performance. John Hopkins is a very gifted comic actor, and he invented this one gag, really, which was that every time he mentioned Lluellen, he called him something like Sue-Ellen or Lluellen. And then right at the end, after Lluellen was dead, he called him Lluellen with a sort of tone of respect, now that he was safely dead. And it was actually surprisingly moving. There was this kind of defiance sending him up all through the play, and then this kind of respect for him at the end. It's just a sample of what somebody can do, which obviously is totally grafted onto the play. No, I think, I mean, in many ways, these chronicle histories, they're like Robert Bruce and the Spider and George Washington and the Cherry Tree. I mean, it's all the well-known stories you ever heard about these people kind of put together with a sort of thin thread of history, which makes them extremely enjoyable. They seem sort of familiar because you've heard stories like that before.
Excellent. Elizabeth, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed listening to what everyone actually has to say about the play as a whole. And it's caused me to rethink my idea, because my original thoughts were that the first third was shaky, was iffy, I'm not sure. The second third was really strong, and the final third kind of falls flat. But I do think that has to do with the way we've read it. I think that may actually have a lot to do with the way we've read it rather than the play itself. Because the characters are very compelling, and I do like Elinor, both Elinors, and Joan. I think they're pretty strong female characters, which would be very lovely for actresses to get their teeth into. Yeah.
I mean, it's almost exactly this. I mean, it's not as adverse a reaction, but we have done plays where first 2 days we really enjoyed it, and then third day you're never 100% certain whether it's just everybody's mood is in a slightly different place, and people turn against plays. It's happened before. Alan, final thoughts?
I must admit, I quite enjoyed the first 2 days. Today, I think, because of the state the script is in, with the misplaced scenes, and the fact that it's changed in style almost completely from the extended scenes that we were getting in the first 2/3 of it, to the short, sharp bits, a lot of which I think are misplaced. I just found it almost impossibly difficult to follow as to what the heck was going on.
Okay, Sascha.
Nothing really much to add apart from I agree with Alexandra's idea of it being a mini-series to be developed, because I think for certainly a modern audience where you've got a lot of media savvy people out there, they want to see, for their mindset, it's short, sharp bursts. However, as a play, I'm right with you, Robert. I think as a play in itself, apart from some modifications, I think on its own ground, it really is a good structural play. It might have been Helen's. Okay, right, sorry. No worries, thank you. Just spotted her pop up in the chat. But yeah, but as a play in itself, it really does stand on its own 2 feet. Yes, some modifications might need to take place, but I don't see why it can't run as it is. You just really need to pull the strands together. And only other thing is, I love the female roles in this. I think especially as they are more detailed than ones that I've seen in this sort of series. It's and obviously without invoking the quack, I don't want to, without invoking the quack, to compare to that. This one, I think, for females, is actually a lot more interesting than a lot that I've read with you guys so far. Some good ones to get my teeth into there.
I think we really must not overstate the amount of misplaced text. I mean, there's maybe 40, 50 lines out of 2,000. There isn't that much that's necessarily out of place. Potentially, it depends on how radical you want to go. Lynn, final thought. Final thought.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the Daniel Alexandra team, skimming the first part of the text, reading, because I wasn't able to participate that day. And then the second day, I was thinking, okay, the political thread is the A plot. And it turns out, no, I'm wrong. The domestic plot is the central. And I don't think I would get rid of either the Scots or the Welsh, because those are kind of foils that set off the domestic plot. And I think especially in terms of Edward, because he's so dominant as a military man and as a political man, and he's so not in his domestic life. So I think that makes him more complicated and more interesting, and we have less trouble, you know, relating to him as being kind of flat when we see he's such a different person at home than he is in his military context. So I think all of that's important, that it works together that way.
Excellent. I think I've covered everybody. So we have a lot of thoughts about this. I mean, again, especially if we're talking about miniseries or, you know, an ongoing series of things, is, you know, the great thing about history plays is, you know, there's a lot of them and they go in order. You know, and it's interesting that everyone ignores this one. It's like they always start at Edward II and they don't start with this one. And I think that's not fair on this play, because I think there is so much good material in this play, and I think it works very well. That I think it's a, you know, it's got a bad rep, I think, generally. You know, people just ignore it and go straight to Edward II and sort of skip to other ones, even within history plays that are not the obvious ones. And I think it's just utterly unfair on it. You know, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is June and it is unfilmable. You know, so that's it from me and the readers. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.